What's up, everyone? Jim, Terry, and Eric here to talk about, we're going to keep it real this week about Rogue One, a Star Wars story. A little later about Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Still, the gift that keeps on giving. But let's talk about Star Wars. Rogue One, first trailer dropped today. I did the rewind for it. I want to hear what you guys have to think. Ladies first. What did you think of the Rogue One trailer?
Ladies first, Jin is awesome. I'm already sold. There's been a lot of talk about how it already feels like it has a different tone. You feel like it's definitely this war-torn part of the Star Wars timeline. It feels really different. Like the Donnie Yen action scenes, like Forrest Whitaker's character looks awesome. But yeah, I was just so sold on Jin. And then I've now watched it. I mean, I say 5 times, but that probably is on the low end of the spectrum for most of you watching and most of us in the office. But it really is that scene where they're going out and they're fighting the AT-ATs where you're like, wow, this looks awesome. What about for you, Eric?
Yeah, I loved it. I love the vibe of it. I love that it did have a different feel than your typical Star Wars episode, which obviously does have its own sort of an overall feeling to it. This felt like Star Wars, but there was just something a little bit different. And I think we've thought about that since last summer, even seeing some of the preliminary images put out there.
The D23 stuff.
Yeah, and then just there's some great shots in that trailer. The shot of Ben Mendelsohn's character sort of walking through the water with the stormtrooper corpses all around him. Whoever that is in the hood going into the room with the 2 Imperial Royal Guards. So yeah, and I already love Felicity Jones, but I loved what we see of that character. I think I think she's gonna kind of own that movie. So yeah, I'm super psyched.
Did you guys watch Like Crazy? That was the first thing I ever saw her in.
No.
And
just Theory of Everything.
And Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right, exactly.
That's true,
but
yes.
I think it's really interesting because we've seen her in these, I'd say, a lot more emotional roles, and so to see her sort of, Eric sort of brought this up a couple times, but more of like a Han Solo type figure. Yeah. She's the thief. She's like, I thought we were rebelling, of vibe. I like that hardness to her.
Yeah, she's a rogue with a heart of gold kind of thing. And,
is she? The end of that trailer really
that is
cast
really
that into
interesting.
question.
Yeah, like just hearing the Vader respirator thing, and even over the line of dialogue too, with Forrest Whitaker says
what
something.
Do you become?
What do you become? And she's wearing the Imperial gunner outfit.
Right, which we assume is like part of probably the mission to steal the plans. But is there going to be sort of a crisis within her because it does seem like she doesn't begin the movie as a member of the Rebel Alliance.
She walks in handcuffs.
Yeah. And I do think that she will be sort of a female Han Solo to put it in simple terms, but also people have to remember Star Wars does deal in archetypes, and I think it's really cool to have like a sort of a new take on that type of character, the person who's in it for themselves, which like Han and Lando were, but see it through Felicity Jones, who's a different gender and a different complete vibe than those guys.
I know. You can't have that.
I didn't want to shock you.
According to comments.
Yes. So yeah, I think that's great in a series that uses archetypes in really cool ways. I think it's great to have her character come from that point of view.
I really like the trailer. I think at this point I'm just so used to getting cool Star Wars trailers that it's tough for me to be oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, pretty much, I mean, just going back to Phantom Menace, like they've all been good. Like,
the trailers.
The trailers, yes, the trailers. I was joking earlier how could Rogue One be the first good prequel, but somebody then corrected me. They're like, well, technically now the original trilogy are prequels. And I'm like, all right, if we're gonna get cutesy about it, but I think it's an interesting take. I like that it's not about the Skywalkers, although technically if Darth Vader is in there, I guess it ties them in. But Gareth Edwards has previously said that this isn't. There are no Jedi. This isn't a movie necessarily about the Force. It's not about the Jedi and some divine power, metaphysical force. Lowercase f, determining the outcome of things or influencing. It's about people having to go to war, and it's definitely a war movie. You get, we saw some of that concept art out of D23, and it's got kind of a Halo vibe to some of that, of and just like storming the beach
in
of
the
Normandy.
Trenches.
Like this is a down and dirty war movie.
And if you think about the timeline of this taking place before A New Hope, Luke was the first, the return, sort of the first Jedi to come back. He was the New Hope because he had this sensitivity.
And nobody
because of that-
even still believed it in the Empire
Right,
side.
there,
right?
you know, maybe we get Darth Vader and we have some Sith that, you know, or Palpatine, Sidious, whatever. But it totally makes sense to me that there really wouldn't be a lot of discussion of the Force because people have thought that the Jedi have been done away with and all the Jedi that are remaining are still in hiding.
Yeah, and the Imperial guys, to kind of clarify my comment, was that, you know, you'll remember the guy gets choked out in New Hope by, you know, your sorcerers. Well, like, nobody respected Vader, I guess, as
a wizard.
As a wizard. Like, you know, he was just a badass
scary
with a sword.
respirator wizard,
you know,
yeah.
that, it, you know, they didn't seem to believe it in anymore, even though it had only been 20 years before, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's another...
I will bring up Star Wars Rebels only because that is something they still need to explain, of course, which is that Rebels, which is like set about 4 or 5 years before A New Hope, does have a couple people with lightsabers running around with members of the still growing Rebel Alliance. And, you know, there's still questions we have about how to reconcile that with the fact that by Empire Strikes Back, certainly they're at that boy's our last hope, you know, point.
Yeah.
So, but it is all canon, so I'm sure we're going to get an explanation at some point. There's been rumors about maybe a character from Rebels popping up in Rogue One. I don't know if that's true, but I think there will be. There already was a little bit of a connection on Rebels Season 2 as far as like looking for the Death Star. So
Yeah.
I think that you'll see those little...
How do you feel
together.
about the return of Mon Mothma?
Everyone was a bit, I don't think anyone expected how excited people would be about the return of
Mon
Mon
Mothma mania.
I know it's going to be a lot of Mon
Mothma
Mothma.
That actress too, Genevieve, I believe. is her
Genevieve
name.
O'Reilly, right?
Yeah, she looks spot on,
Yeah.
and she was the actress
Yeah.
Who was cut.
She hasn't
from,
aged.
Yeah, Revenge
You
of the
can
Sith.
spot her in Revenge of the Sith, in
Yeah.
like far away.
Yeah, how much
walking.
of her scenes from that did they cut? Do you know?
Everything where she speaks. It was on the DVD.
It's like an actor's nightmare.
I know.
Everything where you open your
because
mouth, we cut
it was
that.
a whole subplot that was basically how Padme, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma are starting what will become the Rebel Alliance.
Do you think we'll get Bail Organa on this
That's a
one?
good question, right? Will Jimmy Smits pop up?
Jimmy
Jimmy
Smith
Smith
pops
is-
up in everything.
And he's also
yeah.
been saying, like, since Disney bought Lucasfilm, he's like, yep, I'll be there when they need. But this is sort of something that ties into a bigger conversation that's come out of this trailer. Basically, the second the trailer dropped, people started speculating about who Jyn was.
Right.
Is she Rey's mom? Is she Captain Phasma? You know, is Diego Luna's character any one of a number of people who he could be?
Poe's dad.
He posed like
Yeah.
anyone. And that immediately, I don't know, that takes me out of it
Yeah.
because I really want these characters to stand on their own. We already had The Force Awakens, which was so reliant on feeding into your nostalgia. This is literally like telling the part before A New Hope. So we're already getting a lot of that familiar stuff. I think the idea that these, you know, like tangential side characters who we're meeting who aren't part of the main Star Wars story still being so related to the characters in Star Wars just makes this galaxy feel really small to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary at all, and I hope I do assume it's not true. Like even her being Rey's mom, it's like okay,
The timing doesn't work.
Well, the timing is off.
Maybe she just decided to have children late in
Right.
life, which is fine, Jim.
But more importantly, it takes the, we're going to follow sort of just the regular non-Jedi characters, but her daughter's an all-powerful Jedi. You know, it's like, it doesn't need that. You
And I
know,
think
it should
it-
just be about
Yeah, I
these
agree.
scrappy people.
I think it would undermine sort of her character as well. We still don't know what will happen with Rey. I think they did a good job of really establishing Rey as an awesome character, just as Rey in
Yeah.
The Force Awakens. But I do feel like if she does end up being Luke's daughter or anyone, or Jin's daughter or anything else, it takes away from her being awesome as she
Yeah.
is, that she's part of this bigger picture. And considering the other anthology movies are going to be Han Solo origin movie, and then also the
Rumored
Boba Fett
Boba
one.
Fett,
Yeah. Those are already pre-existing characters. We need to bring some new cool characters
Yeah.
in who can just be as awesome as Han Solo was awesome on his
Yeah,
own.
we don't need, not everyone has to be related to the next one. This
Yeah.
isn't, a small town in like Northern California or
Yeah,
Ireland
yeah.
or something. Now everyone from those places is going to write in and say, why did you pick on us?
No, but I mean-
I'm just using it as an example.
It already is related to everything, right? It's taking
Yeah.
place right before A New Hope. They're
Yeah.
stealing the plans for the Death Star. Like,
We
that
know how
is a
it
big
ends.
enough
and Vader's
connection.
yeah, that's all you need. I mean, just the fact, like, some folks were speculating, well, what if Ben Mendelsohn is actually just Grand Moff Tarkin? I'm like, why does he have to be?
Exactly.
He's
Yeah.
another bad guy.
Yeah.
It's great, but we never heard of him. Because he probably dies at the end of this movie, and Grand Moff Tarkin takes over.
And if you're a true galactic empire, we won't have heard of every single person. Doing
it's
stuff.
some viceroy and some
So
distant colony.
I am curious, we all feel pretty unified on the fact that we want these characters to stand alone. Are we in the minority? Do you guys disagree with us? Definitely want to let us know about that.
I feel like people, I get the speculation, especially on a series that's had a couple of big reveals, but it's not necessarily always good for you.
I also
not
am so
everybody
curious.
needs to be related.
I mean, I'm so getting ahead of myself here because this is the teaser trailer for a movie that comes out in December. But hey, we like to speculate about Star Wars and all things here on Keeping It Real. I am curious, given the tone of this movie, is it inevitable that it ends in tragedy? Like, we haven't really heard of these characters before. Is Jyn gonna die at the end?
I don't think she has to, but I was saying to Jim earlier, I think it's, because it's kind of a crew. We saw that like team picture. I think a good chunk of them aren't making it out. I think it's going to be like
They're
certainly,
the patsies. There's some sort of suicide
Yeah,
squad.
they are. I think it will be that there's like a lot of loss in this as far as like...
You can't do a Dirty Dozen story and not have most of the dozen get killed.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
And Ben Mendelsohn, hell, the movie could end with Vader, choking him to death because he failed him.
Right.
I got to do this myself. Get me on the Star Destroyer and chase that.
Do you guys think, I mean, I'm glad that really...
Nice cape though, bro.
that we didn't see too many callbacks to New Hope, given the fact that they could go all the way. Do you think that Vader will be a character or a key character in this movie?
you Act 3.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's kind of mentioned, whispered, but you don't see him until the end, and that's your oh shit moment.
I mean, I do think what I was just joking, I think could be a version of it, because I was saying to Jim also how it's, how do you connect up to Star Wars? I don't think they'd ever want to recast Princess Leia, so we probably won't see her. So if you stay on the Empire perspective, because Vader can be anyone in that suit and James Earl Jones doing the voice, you could still have it like from the, like, it could be a version of follow that ship.
I'm really interested to find out how and why it gets to the point that it's Leia who does need to
or the droids. That Leia somehow she gets the plans. They come under attack. She puts them in R2. They go down. So we have to get to the point where they at least get into Leia's hands to get the droids involved. I mean, unless. Do you think we'll see R2 and 3PO
I almost
pop up?
thought, what if we see BB-8?
We'll see R2 and 3PO, and we'll see Captain Antilles. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. I wonder. I was trying to figure out if one of those captured pilots was Wedge.
Yeah.
Could be recast Wedge. That is.
I do again. My fear though is we already did the thing that went so heavy on nostalgia and everything that's familiar with The Force Awakens. It's really easy to do the same here. It's really easy to do the same in Episode 8. But I don't want them to. I want this movie to tonally and in terms of its content and everything else stand on its own and feel different. Because why else are you doing an anthology?
I'm going to formulate my own fan theory. I'm sure somebody else out there has probably spitballed this too. But I'm going to go out there on a limb and say that Felicity, Jones's character, Jyn, will be in the Han Solo prequel as some sort of love interest, and maybe whatever happens in that is what gets her in trouble at the beginning of Rogue One.
Jim, you're totally undermining my whole thing about how she should be her own character.
This is the kind of stuff they sell those action figures. She has to have a different outfit. How did she get the vest? That's her tie. They're both went out vest shopping and they met cute.
They put their hands on the same vest at the store.
This is totally unrelated to this, but I forgot who it was, but someone pointed out on Twitter that every character is wearing a vest in Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
And the costume designer was like, oh wate, I didn't even realize that. I just really like vests.
I saw someone say, can't wait to see Donna Vest this weekend. And it was just a pic, and they did a montage of pictures of
oh my God, no, how did I miss all the vests? Yeah, Alfred, everyone. But we're going to talk about BVS in a little bit. Even Lois, oh my God, yeah. But I had some more thoughts about Rogue One, though. The fact that we're going back to the Death Star again, after we'd already had...
6 out of 8 have the Death Star in them, right?
Yes, I thought you were doing like a dentist thing. 6 out of 8
No.
Death Stars approved. I mean, we have New Hope.
3, 4, 6, 7, and now this one.
Yeah.
It's insane. Come on. Yes, we had Starkiller Base just the last time, but we know they're not going to blow it up at the end of this movie. So is it sort of like a big misdirect? Is it sort of, we're thinking the plans are the MacGuffin, that thing that everyone's after don't really matter, but maybe the Death Star itself is? I mean, do we think the Death Star, are we going to see the Death Star blow up some other planet besides Alderaan?
Oh, like an earlier test?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think on Star Wars terms, this will be smaller scale, right? Like, so I don't think no lightsabers, no the Force.
No space battles.
No
from what we've
space
seen.
battles. So I don't think they need to show the Death Star blow up a planet because I think the Empire will do some nasty things, but it'll be
Yeah.
a personal level. You know?
I do agree with that.
Call
I
the
think you're
names
right
right on the
about
locker.
Yes.
there might be a misdirect there. You know, we're talking so much about the plot of the movie as we've been told it, but that trailer was telling a different story, and it really does seem like it's going to be so much about Jyn Erso, and does she turn to the dark side? Like, does she
Where does her
fall over
loyalties
the
lie?
ledge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's actually the real crux of the movie and the real
I hope so.
conflict.
That'd be really interesting.
Instead of, and you know, it's just, you're right, there's a MacGuffin that leads her along this way, but is it more of a personal story and more of a
That'd
personal
be really
story?
fun. I would love to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there's still, of course, plenty. You know, there were several actors we did not see in the trailer.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen we didn't see. We think we might have seen who Alan Tudyk is motion capturing,
droid,
that droid,
yeah.
but we're not sure.
What's the other guy? Riz Ahmed, right, from Nightcrawler?
Yes, yeah.
we didn't see
So
him.
yeah, there's still, you know, yeah. It's like they gave us that little log line last year, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot more to the movie. Than
And
that.
I was wondering, you know, we didn't see Mads. It seems like he's going to be a villainous character and more
based
of a-
on his career.
Yeah, based on he's actually just
Based on
playing
everything
Hannibal.
he
Some
does.
Eastern European and
Yeah,
Hollywood.
but I
yes.
wonder if he is the cloaked figure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Interesting. I mean, there was some
Process
rumors
of
that he
elimination.
was. There was a rumor that he was sort of like the Oppenheimer of this, the guy who created the Death Star and was horrified at what he had done, and then it was kind of trying to become a mole for the rebels.
Like Victor Garber in Titanic.
Exactly like that. I just love, you know, just
Forgot
on a
Victor Garber
tech
was
on
in
a tech thing with Star Wars, they can build all these giant planet-killing things. But there's no internet, there's no cloud, there's not, you still have to, like, there's not even flash drives. You didn't even see a flash drive size thing until Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Like, everything
30
has to be
years
like
later.
the size of that book to, you know, steal.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and they go to the beat of their own drum. You know?
Exactly. You know, there's not even, there were surveillance cameras on the Han Solo's garbage scow thing,
Yeah.
that was on, but not on the Death Star.
No,
Like, they're like, who would
They
be
cheaped
stupid
out.
enough to show
They
up
also,
in here?
They cheap on surveillance cameras and on guardrails. You know, they just have these
Guard-
platforms where
but
people can fall off.
Well,
the
They
maybe-
side.
go for floor wax like nobody's business.
Listen,
Yeah.
maybe those were in the plans, but since they got stolen, they couldn't.
Exactly.
Why are there no rails on this thing?
Why didn't we ever cover that exhaust port? Well, I mean, if I had the blueprints, I could have known where to put the plank over it. You know?
Right.
Are there any other big issues for you with this trailer? Like, you know,
Issues?
well, or just things that you're curious about. Like Gareth Edwards, director of Godzilla and Monsters, great movie Monsters, deliberately paced kind of narrative storytelling on his part. Do we think that'll be the case here, like kind of more of a slow burn, or are we going to have that serial pacing that we know from Star Wars? Empire didn't really have that.
Yeah, I think maybe not quite as adrenalized as your typical Star Wars movie, but I don't think it'll be like, you know, people were doing the oh great, and they did like an oh great, we won't, I can't remember what they were saying, we won't see whatever till the end of the movie because of Godzilla, which I had a lot of issues with too. But I
Saw the
don't.
Death Star in the trailer.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be the case. Maybe Vader's at the end, but they're not publicizing the movie around Vader right now, so
Yeah.
you can't say like they told us Vader. Like we'll see if he gets in a trailer before it opens.
Didn't you love, I love the music too, the
Yeah.
piano kind of version
Yeah.
of the mashup of the two things.
Yeah, no, and I'm very curious to hear the score, of course, because it's not John Williams,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But fantastic composer. I'm not going to say his name right. Alexandre Desplat.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
He's awesome.
He's
He
got Oscars.
did,
and
he did the final two
Potter.
Harry Potter movies, so he's already taken over for John Williams.
I'm used to coasting in his wake.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm now. I just come across like such an a-hole on this. So, what do
Come
Kind of-
across.
I will say, the one thing that we did sort of our San Francisco coworkers did a Facebook live stream reaction earlier today. And the one thing they brought up is like, why are the rebels running on the ground firing it at us? That doesn't seem like it's the smartest strategy.
I guess all their pilots got kidnapped.
Or maybe they were just doing something and stealing something and ran out. And
I think
suddenly
it was
they were
supposed to
under
be a
attack.
commando mission that goes
Yeah.
awry.
Yeah.
Like, you
But I
know,
will
rescue
say-
the guys, and then they either knew the plans were there or the pilots had them somehow. I don't know.
I
Something.
will say that's sort of the mic drop moment of the trailer, though. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
fine with it
Yeah.
not really making any sense.
It was really
right
cool
now.
though too to see the AT-ATs, especially like that, with Ray living in like I want to say the foot of one, the
Yeah.
paw, whatever you want to call it.
Paw of an ad.
Paw of an AT-AT. It's a short story.
It's adorable, and then do the, just seeing them, for entire generation of people, you only could imagine them in the snow.
Yeah.
So now I'd like to see them in basically this sort of like almost
Tropic.
Hawaii environment, And,
yeah. And by the way, it's good. I mean, it's funny. It's the little things, but we haven't seen that sort of palm tree tropical environment in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's
Okay, but whatever happened to? This is particularly nerdy, but what the hell? This is what we're paid for. So you have all these Scarab troopers and Death Squad guys. Then you never use them again when you're going right up against the rebellion. You just use them pretty early on, where you're like, look, we have to abide by the Geneva Conventions. We can't have
I guess
that.
you just have to go with it and say again, they're used in certain things, and we didn't see everything going on, because it's like, hell, you could say, why didn't we see speeder bikes and those guys until Return of the Jedi, right? Like,
Right.
where were they on Tatooine? Where were they on? It's just they were around the corner. They were they were almost there.
All I can imagine this whole time is just Spaceballs. Comb the desert.
Now, there was some other Star Wars stuff, though, this week. We had the Blu-ray came out of Force Awakens. And, there are some deleted scenes on there. They're not particularly impressive. It was kind of disappointing. But there were two that kind of jumped out. One is the one that most people were talking about when they first heard about it, was Kylo Ren going on the Falcon and just Han Solo, it's having that moment of sense. But for me, the more noteworthy one was the actual original introduction to Leia Organa, reintroduction, and C-3PO. And it was it was much more plot driven. And I think it was smart for them. You saw the collection.
Yeah,
You didn't,
I haven't
did you?
seen it.
It came
Yeah.
pretty early on in the story, or at least it seemed like it. She basically is
It's after
receiving.
Jakku and
yeah,
and
she's
Poe
basically
getting caught.
receiving news that Poe is caught and that she's like, we need to find the droid. But yeah, it's not anywhere near as emotional as the actual
Yeah.
introduction that she got. And I think it was
Yeah.
the right call to
Yeah.
hold off on her and have it be this big moment. Where
Yeah, an
it's not-
emotional reveal.
And and also it's her reunion with Han
Han,
Solo.
and that's what there's such an investment in that relationship.
Yeah, yeah, because this one was definitely much more of the Basil exposition moment of like, we have to get that, because if we don't find it and they get to Luke and
Right.
blah blah blah, like we got it,
Right.
And then the Kylo Ren scene, while it was cool to see him on the Falcon, we already know Han Solo's his dad, so it was just
What?
And then there was what else did they have on there? They're a huge documentary all about the making of the movie, and it was interesting. We finally found out what, at least I did, what Mark Hamill was doing at the table read,
Yeah.
and he was reading all the description. He wasn't just there to.
He
glower
wasn't
at the
just
end.
sitting going, where the hell am I?
Jesus, JJ. And then they announced that Force for Change initiative this week, and he had a bit of fun with his glowering to the camera, thing. But yeah.
Did you see that meme I retweeted today?
No.
That is, it's the end of the movie, and it's she's holding out the lightsaber, and then they captioned it with Luke being like, "There was a hand too. Do you have that hand? Did you ever find that?"
That's
I
amazing.
really miss my hand. Because look at this thing I have. That's terrible. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff this week with Star Wars, Rogue One, Force Awakens coming home on Blu-ray. I think it's still in a few movie theaters. I know
No,
they
yeah,
pro-
it only dropped like 11% or something last weekend as it was
yeah,
coming out.
yeah, they were really hell bent to. What do you think we're going to get for May the 4th? The Episode 8 trailer, maybe?
That's a good question, right?
Maybe that could be something that's coming with
Yeah.
Civil War.
Interesting.
Right? We were trying to figure
Yes.
that out earlier.
Right, yeah.
Yes, you're right. Although May the 4th would be, isn't it like the day or day after Civil War opens?
No, it's actually the day it opens.
Ah.
That would be a huge missed opportunity. Disney, if you're watching
Yeah.
this,
Because they're already debuting all this
but-
stuff on Kimmel with Civil War. and
It's
Doctor
weird because
Strange.
we've had this conversation, when they delayed, it's too early for Episode 8 when I think about it, because that's a year and a half. And we were already talking about how
Just a teaser
Yeah.
of Luke
Rogue, I don't know.
finally saying something.
Because maybe it could
Hi.
be maybe something like that. I don't think it'd be an actual teaser, but maybe something as like behind the scenes. Because the thing with Rogue One is they still have to sell it to people, And even watching that teaser, I always think about like the test of like my mom or someone who's like likes Star Wars movies but isn't fond. When she watches that teaser, she's not going to get that it's a prequel, right? She's
they're going to be where's Rey and the kid.
Yeah, like people are going to still think this is the sequel to Episode 7
at
a glance, and so I don't think they want to muddy the waters too much yet and start really promoting Episode 8, but maybe some sort of.
It is going to be it's just difficult for our audience and even for us to kind of grasp the idea.
Disassociate from.
That this has nothing to do with Force Awakens. Unless it turns out she is Rey's mom.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with disengaging. I don't want it to be connected.
Getting all sassy on it.
Come on.
All right. Well, we want to know what you guys thought of Rogue One, any of your theories, all that stuff. Let us know in the comments. Let us move on to our other big entertainment story this week, which is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. It's number one for the second week in a row. It has made $704 million, I think. Here, I'm going to pull up some figures.
I was just thinking about how this is the third week in a row that we've been talking about it on Keeping It Real, and it's Keeping It Real drop-off percentage of time is pretty similar.
I've been talking about this movie for 3 years. So this is nothing new.
It went to 3
for me.
Comic-Cons.
Exactly, seriously. Yeah, one Comic-Con too many probably for it. But okay, so right now, BVS's its worldwide total as of Thursday is $704.5 million. Domestically, at $270.5 million. It opened at $166.1 million, but had a huge drop, second week drop of 69.1%, so down to $51 million. It's one of the big drops. It's the biggest comic book movie drop, but it's also one of the big drops. It's up there with X-Men Origins Wolverine and Deathly Hallows Part 2, which it actually lost the bragging rights of saying it was the biggest Warner Brothers opening ever to Deathly Hallows 2.
I think the question is if it drops again this weekend, which it inevitably will, because that's just diminishing returns. People have already seen the movie, they're moving on. How big is that drop? Right? Yeah. Like, is it another really substantial drop where it only makes...
If it's another 50%, that's down to 25.
Right. If it only makes 25 or 30 million, that's like,
that could still be enough to win because it's opening up against The Boss, which is Melissa McCarthy's latest movie, and Hardcore Henry. Now, I'm of the opinion that The Boss is going to beat it.
Yeah.
But not by much. But I think it'll beat it. I think the tracking on The Boss has been underestimating that.
I think the thing that has to be really troubling for Warner Brothers, even though they're putting a happy face and everything, is it fell that much with nothing major opening against it because everyone got out of its way.
Yeah.
And then
Jungle Book is next week.
And so it had this massive fall, even though it didn't have a big movie opening, to sort of take anything.
It's just the reason. So, okay, IGN hating on BVS. Why is this important?
6.8.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's
one of the more positive reviews I've seen.
Exactly. How dare you? So the reason why that's significant and troubling is that, yes, it's making money. No one ever said it wouldn't make money.
Yeah.
It was all about how much money, but more importantly, what does it say about repeat business and people liking these characters, wanting to come back for more, because that will indicate what you can expect for the sequels or the other DC films.
And how, what is the perception moving forward, and how are people perceiving this series? Yeah, is the big thing.
I mean, because between the cinema score and the huge audience drop-off, and the really even mixed response amongst fans, like that's several big strikes.
Yeah.
However, it looks like Warner Brothers, though, according to Hollywood, I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's not all bad news because they just announced 2 new dates this week.
But it's like you could argue that they're doubling down because what else do they have? You know? They're going to make less movies, but they're doing 2 more. They announced 2 more DC movies, and we're going to speculate on what we think those are. And they pushed up Wonder Woman a couple of weeks, but that gets Wonder Woman. I think she was opening up against Transformers 5, so it gets her out of that.
Well, it's interesting because it was a story in the Hollywood Reporter that announced the 2 new dates, but only a few hours before that, they were saying there was like a report that they were exclusively breaking that Warner Brothers was reassessing their lineup and really looking at some of these other characters, like I'm assuming like Aquaman and Cyborg, and seeing, should we focus on our core characters or should we not? And again, like given the the context of only a couple hours later, they were the ones who announced 2 new movies. I
Well,
wonder if that was
yeah,
trying
the
to
two
undercut it.
the two unspecified untitled DC movies. One opens on October 5th, 2018. The other on November 1st, 2019. They sound far away, but the fact of the matter is, you have to start gearing up now.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I mean, this means they're going to be going to production by early next year.
I feel like it's inevitable that one of them is a solo Batman
Yes.
movie.
I think
Yeah.
I'm with you there. So we all agree that one of them is
That's
the
probably the
Batman.
2018
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
The other
and
one
then
is total.
I'm going Lobo
So that's a good one.
because it's a reaction to Deadpool.
Yeah, that's a good guess. That's a better guess than mine. My other.
Let's hear your crappy guess.
Well, it was actually someone on Twitter. I don't remember who it was who said to me when I was tweeting like, oh,
it Zack Snyder?
No, I was tweeting how October is interesting because that's just not a month you release like a tentpole giant comic book movie.
Swamp Thing.
No, someone said,
would
what if it's Justice League Dark? And I was like, oh, because of Halloween. I was like, that would be really
awesome.
cool, but it's probably Lobo.
Yeah, it's probably Lobo.
Because look, I mean, say what you will about BVS falling, but Warner Brothers had already established March as a month that they've released big movies in. Sometimes ones they didn't know were going to be big, but like Matrix and 300 both opened in March.
The whole month thing doesn't really matter
Deadpool
anymore.
just opened in February.
It doesn't really,
so-
it doesn't really matter anymore. It used to just be like, oh, January and February and September were like the doldrums.
Yeah.
It doesn't. People, studios want to spread their content around because, I mean, what was it? Just 2010, whenever Cowboys and Aliens opened,
Yeah.
there was like 2 major tentpole releases every weekend, and at a certain point, the studios all hurt each other.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
nobody could make enough money because there was too much product out there.
Oh yeah,
So-
I mean BVS certainly look. It was the right move to move away from what the movie that became Civil War at the time. We didn't
Yeah.
know what it was going to be. Then it was Captain America 3. Then it got worse and worse for.
Yeah, then they just said, "Oh yeah, and Downey's in it." Like, we're
Yeah,
just gonna
yeah.
go over here.
I think they'd already moved by that point. But yeah, you know, but yeah, I mean they proved, you know, they're, like we said, you know, even though there is a troubling side to this drop-off, they still are going to make a movie that's going to make the better part of $1 billion, whether it squeaks by or not. So clearly, opening in March, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah,
And
I don't
opening
think
But
anyone's
will
going to
it-
lose their job.
Will
over
it get?
but,
Will it be bigger than Deadpool
no,
domestic?
I don't think
Not
so.
domestic, I don't think.
Funny you should say that, Terry, because I have the figure right here.
It would need
Deadpool
another 100
domestic.
million, right?
Yeah, it's Deadpool's domestic is 356 million, 753 million worldwide. So it's going to beat it worldwide for sure, which is the more important number because let's face it, with China is now the second biggest market, but it's going to be the number 1 market probably by next year.
Yeah.
BVS is at 270.5 domestic, and Deadpool is at 356. So I think it could end up kind of being neck and neck, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Again, it just should.
I think Deadpool might beat it
It's just so
domestically.
crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
just again, yeah, it's like Batman vs Superman. In no way is it a bomb. It's a huge hit.
Yeah, we're
But
not saying that.
at a certain point, yeah, it's like, of course. The thing is, it opened worldwide almost everywhere. It like didn't, you know, it basically opened in every country the same weekend.
Yeah.
And it's a movie with Batman and Superman in the title, so it should
And
make a lot
Wonder
of-
Woman thrown
And
in
Wonder
there.
Woman was in it too. So there's a lot of reasons for it to make money. But I do think you're seeing dissatisfaction reflected in what it's making now, how quickly it's dropping. And I hate to bring up only Marvel examples and the only reason I am is because Box Office Mojo used these examples, but like they did a tweet on Monday or Tuesday because they're like, oh, if you look at now the comparable Mondays, and we're just talking the second Monday it's been out. It's not like weeks down the line. But it was making considerably less than Age of Ultron or Iron Man 3 made on like that considerable second, on the relative second Monday. And it's like, that just shows like, whatever you think of the movie yourself, I would hope you could acknowledge that overall it's mixed reaction at best because it's just the audience is
definitely
not,
muted it
it's
on a
not
commercial.
resonating in the way that a
mean,
movie that's beloved
People
does.
have talked a lot about how, you know, first of all, DC and Marvel tonally are different.
Yeah.
Companies and franchises and what have you. And yes, like you can have a dark movie. It's absolutely fine to have a dark superhero movie. We've had plenty and they've been
great
great.
ones.
Yeah.
But when you look at the movies that on a broad scale, and we're looking purely at like box office numbers that people are responding to, they are the lighter ones. And I think it's because when you think of the big heyday of DC movies in recent memory were the Chris Nolan very dark Batman
Yeah.
movies. But those,
But those
were,
had characters you could like at least.
well, also, but
Yeah.
those were like 5-10 years ago, and the world was in a different place. We were still coming at it, like we were in the Iraq
They
Wars.
weren't really fighting Marvel at that point.
But not even that.
Iron
I
Man
just
1
think
was the
like
first
I think
fight.
the mindset of the country and people going to see it, people do want some semblance of escapism now.
But I guess this is where I have to go into my own personal criticism of Batman vs Superman. Dark Knight just kicked ass. Like everyone loved it, and it was dark, but it was fun and engaging and entertaining in a way that I don't think Batman vs Superman succeeds as a movie.
And
so
you
it's like,
cared about the people in that. I think the
Yeah.
bottom line, I think Devin Faraci actually mentioned this, to give him a shout out. He said something like, you have to have characters that people like, which is the rule of television. I mean, that's you want them coming back every week because you want to spend time with these people. And that was outside of Batfleck and Jeremy Irons. I didn't really care for anyone in BVS.
yeah.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, but she was kind of a cipher.
She is a cipher, yeah. Like
know?
I was like, oh, she could be cool. She could be cool, but yeah, I don't think has
So can I ask the really third rail question, since we're talking about both
With
Batman
that-
and Star Wars this week?
With that setup, I don't know if I want you to, but I guess you should.
Is BVS the new Phantom Menace?
Oh, you've waited so long to drop that
But think
one.
about it. We talked about this off camera about all the hype and then just that instantaneous like, oh, that sucks kind of reaction from so many, and then the people who are just hell bent on loving this thing.
I do think there's a little bit of the same, like, I wanted to love this movie so much that I'm determined to love this movie.
I will look past its flaws, and you were a horrible person.
And it's
for
not to
liking
say
it.
that I'm someone who, like, I didn't hate BVS, and there are cool moments in it and things I liked about it. I just don't think it adds up, like, as a movie. I don't think it, like, comes together. And so I do think there is some similarities there as, like, and I don't even want to make a value judgment. It's just as, it's probably better than Phantom Menace, but it's like, as far as like, yeah, you could pick up cool things from both those movies, but right now we're in like this weird mode where it just came out, there was so much hype, and there's an overall sort of disappointment that's hitting, and then there's some people that are just like,
is it like when a controversial person dies and you just want to say about the good things for a while, then you got to wait
Honestly,
like 6 months and then you can talk about what an asshole
I
they were?
mean, there have been a lot of comments on the internet to us, specifically in general, a lot of people with opinions,
to me.
both good and bad, on BVS. And obviously, like a lot of commenters, I don't know who you are or how old you are or anything. But it's hard for me to put that into context because I'm a youngin', and when Phantom Menace came out, I was a kid and I just wholeheartedly loved it. I was like, cool, Star Wars, and those criticisms, now when I go back and watch it, I still have some of that, like, oh, I loved this because I loved it when I was a kid, but also I totally see why people were so disappointed. And I'm really interested, if these people who are so firmly defending it, are they older comics fans, or are they younger people where they're like, listen, I just want to see Batman and Superman.
Comics fans,
I think it's probably a mix. And
it's fine. I think it's fine
Yeah.
either way. Like, no one says you can't love a thing
Yeah.
that you love.
Yeah.
Love it.
And
please.
people. There's also people who are just gonna love. It's gonna hit. I actually had this big argument with a guy on Twitter yesterday because I had made a comment about I really dislike the Superman in these movies and the Snyder movies. I just don't think they get Superman right at all. And there was a guy who staunchly disagreed with me, and he was at least like, he wasn't like go freak. He was just saying his point of view, which I didn't agree with, but he loved it. And I'm like, okay,
it's fine to disagree with us. Just don't be a jerk or
anyone.
vicious about it.
This applies to anyone,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just us. But
Yeah,
also.
Especially,
and but I think look, I wanted to love this movie. I'm a huge lifelong Batman fan.
Confirmed.
And I had friends who used to tease me that I was, quote, noted Batmanologist Jim Vejvoda. And so when a guy like me is being as vehement in some of his criticisms, I mean, shouldn't I have been on board from the get-go?
Right.
Like, it didn't work for me in a lot of regards. But I think it's Superman is just he's not Superman.
I think part of your Phantom Menace comparison can only come in the greater context of what this series grows to be, because I think part of what made Phantom Menace such a continuing disappointment is that the movies that came after really weren't better. Maybe, this was a hiccup, or there were some tweaks that needed to be made, and the next movie is just like really nail it.
Yeah,
And
I
this
hope
is
so.
just like
They're supposed to start filming Monday.
I mean,
in
the
Justice League.
problem for me is because Jim, you liked Man of Steel a lot more than I did. As
Yeah,
someone
I
who,
thought it had some more heart than this.
as someone who didn't like Man of Steel either, it's like, and this was the movie. And no matter what you think of Man of Steel, there was certainly, I think, going into this, they were trying to course correct some stuff from Man of Steel, even making it Batman versus Superman. So that's the problem. Is to me, I'm like, oh, this was supposed to be the one that was going to fix things.
Yeah, is every movie going to be an apology or a repair?
Yeah.
Patching the flat tire of the movie that came before it. That's so much of BVS, and we talked about it in our spoiler cast, dealing with the collateral damage of the ending of Man of Steel. Well, is the Justice League now going to end up, having to deal with, suddenly, let's make everything bright and cheery, even though Superman's dead,
Yeah, it's just we're in a weird place because, again, like you said, like they're about to film Justice League. There's no replacing Snyder. They're doing this movie because this is the machine that they're in. They want to have their own mega superhero franchise like Marvel does. That's why they announced that many movies ahead. So at a certain point, the train has left the station, and they're going to make
Does
money.
it look like the Hogwarts Express?
It's Warner Brothers, so probably. They're going to make money. Like they're huge characters, and they'll make money. But will it be like the Hobbit series, where they all made money, but were there a lot of people who were like loving them? No,
Yeah.
they just
Reminds
kind
me
of
of,
saw
I think
them
we
out of-
talked about that, the Onion
they had to.
headline of like, Warner Brothers tells people to just get it over with.
Yeah.
And go see the
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
I'm like,
Sorry, you brought up the Hogwarts Express, and then I've just been trying to sort the
You've
Justice
been-
League characters in my head the whole time into different Hogwarts.
Well, I
references.
see. I was thinking in the Phantom Menace tip, I guess, Lex Luthor would be like Jar Jar, right? The over the top kind
You're
of.
you're traveling down a dark
and then
path.
and
which
then
there
Wonder
might not be
Woman's like
original.
Darth Maul, like super cool, but not really given enough of identity or stuff to do, and you want more.
Is Wonder Woman the new Darth Maul? There's your headline.
Yeah.
Just saying, people.
Breakout.
So, I think with DC and Warner Brothers DC films, they are making more of them. What's the over-under on some of these other previously announced ones still happening? Are we going to get a Cyborg movie? I just feel like I have no need to see a Cyborg movie.
I think we might.
Now, after seeing how it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think might be seeing some shifting in, who these movies are starring, and like if Suicide Squad goes over big, like let's say Suicide Squad is a crowd pleaser. Like how quickly
yeah.
could a Suicide Squad 2 replace
Right.
one of those movies?
Or
you know?
a Harley movie.
Yeah, that's a great.
I agree with you.
What
that-
if that's,
I hadn't even thought
Harley
about
and
that.
Lobo.
Like, because we already knew that we were getting Flash, Cyborg,
Yeah.
Aquaman movies, I never thought about whether I wanted one. And I absolutely did not come out of that movie being like, I need to know. Even the Flash, who got the most screen time, I wasn't like,
the guy we love on the small screen, but
I was like, oh,
There's
cool.
a really fun TV show about it.
yeah. I would almost rather see like a Harley movie or sort of like a Sirens kind
Yeah.
of thing. I think though you're going to see of the ones that were announced. I bet you Shazam is going to in Flash might happen because if they're trying to. Roven was saying how Cyborg might. No, it was Deborah Snyder who said that Cyborg is going to be in the Flash movie, so it'd be kind of like a buddy flick.
Yeah.
I still don't think I need to see that movie. I think those are scenes you could have. That'd be like having Hawkeye and Falcon together in their own standalone movie.
Yeah,
which,
but it might be more of that mixing and matching, and seeing what elements work, and what people want to see more of. Of course, that's why we all think that one of these movies is a solo Batman movie because it's Batman, and because Affleck was well received in this movie. But yeah, it's like you could start to see a lot more. It's almost, and this is, I don't want to compare the two because no, they're not anywhere in the situation Fox with the Fantastic Four. But this tenuous connection I will make is just that we had a lot of speculation after the last Fantastic Four movie bombed so bad. What will Fox do to use these characters if they're going to keep them? And the idea of more of maybe like team-up movies with the X-Men characters, mixing and matching. And so they might do some of that with this just because, they're committed on a certain level, but they could still change. It's still malleable for some of the movies that are a little bit down the line.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We want to hear what movies you guys would like these two Mystery DC films to be.
Yeah.
And do you think tonally we're going to start seeing things shift around a little bit? We did have one reader email, and I forgot to bring it up during the Rogue One thing. Basically, Well, reader, I remember your question, but not your name, so forgive me. But oh no, it was Jay Wan was his name.
Okay.
And James Wan?
Yeah, and it could be.
Yeah.
He does follow me on Facebook. But he said, do we think Rogue One will do better than Force Awakens in China because they have both Donnie Yen and Zhang Wen. Forgive me for getting your name wrong. You try saying Vavida. I just did it for you. But because they have big Chinese stars there, do we think it will perform better there?
I think there's a very good chance because I don't think Rogue One's going to make near the money that Episode 7 did, and nor does it need to. But in China, the reason it did relatively underperform in China was there was so little familiarity with Star Wars,
Yeah.
And so Force Awakens, in a way, introduced Star Wars to a lot of people. And this movie has the benefit of it's standalone enough, and it has those Chinese stars that I think that it could definitely do better than Force Awakens in China.
Terri, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's an interesting question to be posed, but I do think the fact that it's not so reliant on everything that came before, and it is the sort of standalone and more of like a heist feel, it could perform better. I
think it has enough iconic kind of imagery in there, so like everyone knows of the Death Star and knows of Darth Vader, even if they haven't seen those movies. They're at least maybe have seen the image of them. On the China tip, I do want to point out that the superhero show last week was primarily about X-Men Apocalypse, but at the end they did reader email about BVS, and a fellow wrote in from China who knows of the characters because I forget if he was an American in China or but he said that the audience who saw it had no idea what was going on because they don't know those characters. They were like, who is the female Superman and why are they fighting? They didn't get it, and they were just like, they walked out like, this is just Hollywood nonsense.
I did think about that with that movie. That movie completely relies on you going in knowing who Batman and Wonder Woman are.
And having seen Man of Steel.
Having seen Man of Steel, but at least it's a sequel, so we can give it
there's
that.
a lot of like inferred knowledge from the user, which I think is a mistake. Like I hate it when TV shows or movies spoon feed me anything, but you also need to have whatever you're creating rock solid in and of itself that you can come in with no outside information and understand what is going on.
Yeah, and it was just weird. I don't want to go too down, the what was wrong with Batman or Superman thing, but even when I think about how they introduced
why stop now?
How they introduced Batman and the fact that we didn't get like a kick-ass action scene with him up front. It's all kind of murky because we meet Bruce Wayne as an adult in this crisis. Then we learn after that he's a mass vigilante, and I'm just pretend you didn't know about Batman. I know how weird that is. It's like, oh, did he become that in reaction to what happened in Metropolis?
Yeah.
Yes, we saw what happened to his parents as a kid, but it's like, did this escalate? It's like it does completely go on like you know who Batman is, which is a safe assumption for some, but not for everyone. And and your movie probably needs to explain it better on terms of that movie. Yeah. Even though I think we all agree it didn't need to be an origin of Batman movie, but I think there was still a better way to kind of...
Yeah, especially if you're reliant on that international audience that might not be as familiar with this as Americans.
Right.
Yeah,
I have to say I am a little ticked at all the outlets that beat me to the ranking the Wayne murders. I've been pitching that thing for like
where
weeks.
Would you have ranked this one? Where would you have ranked this one?
Mid to lower.
Okay.
Even though I did.
But to see Negan and Maggie killed together?
Exactly, right? No, I think it's okay just because it already became like meme worthy with the pearls at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And my strap line for the piece was going to be,
no.
A hero will rise, pearls will fall.
I still think we need to get the origin story of the manufacturer of that pearl necklace, since that has been the
we have to do that.
iconic part of
Martha Wayne's pearl necklace in a minute.
At least that's Gotham. Gotham has to do a storyline about that.
Oh, they will. The pearl maker.
Gotham's
special guest star.
Nefarious villain. When I found out what happened to her, I snapped.
That was my greatest creation. Next week we're going to have a Doctor Strange trailer. They've wrapped filming. I loved how Benedict Cumberbatch and Chiwetel Ejiofor and Mads Mikkelsen all out in the streets of New York filming this big battle scene, and then Cumberbatch goes into a comic book shop dressed as Doctor Strange and picks up the Oath, Doctor Strange graphic novel. That trailer is going to drop on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And now, of course, we have Rogue One trailer.
Next week, The Jungle Book opens, so that's
Yeah.
these big Disney trailers will all be in theaters with Jungle
Civil
Book.
War
Also,
opens
we'll
up
have
2 weeks
seen
later in the
Jungle.
UK.
Well, you've already seen.
No.
Oh
Yes,
no, I was
next
confusing
week.
that with Zootopia with your amazing
Oh.
trip.
Yeah, we're seeing Jungle
yeah, we're
Book
seeing
next
Jungle
week.
Book.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
I love
I think
Jungle Book.
all the trailers they've released have
Hearing
just been
great
so
I did a
great.
set visit for that, like a year and a half ago, and it was amazing to see. Like, it was just sound stages in downtown LA where they filmed Mad Men, and everything was, some
And
practical
numbers,
sets with
'cause I've
with
been to
green
that lot
screens.
a couple times.
Yeah, and so like the thing that they turned that into India is amazing. That it was just basically all kind of green screen stuff. And then, so we'll be talking about that next week. We'll, of course, talk about whether or not The Boss, which, Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Bell's new movie opening this weekend, if that beats BVS, I'm sure there'll be, everyone will react very calmly online.
I hope Melissa McCarthy's character's name in The Boss is Martha.
Oh, low blow.
Ow. Ow, 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 ow. But we want to give a shout out to our sister shows, the Rebel Base, the superhero show, and then, of course, you can find Keepin' It Real and all these other shows on multiple IGN platforms, including our PS4 app and everything. I'm on it. I have a Roku. Yeah, we're on everything, man.
We're
Your
on all the
phone,
things.
Can't
everything.
escape us.
Exactly. We're going to be in your brain. So, all right. Well, we want to hear your thoughts on BVS, Rogue One, everything. Follow us on Twitter at Terri_Schwartz, at the Eric Goldman, and at Jim Vavida for all things movies. Oh, send us your feedback at keepingitreal@ign.com. For all things movies, keep it here on IGN.